Hope I see you before Sunday. It's a sin, but I can't restrain myself anymore. I really want to see you because I feel this strange pull toward you. I guess it's time to bring our matter to an end. The message lit up my wife's phone like a flare in the dark. It was from Robert, my cousin, my shadow since childhood, the pastor of our church in this godforsaken small town where everyone knows everyone, but no one sees a damn thing. Upstairs, Mary Lou was folding laundry, humming something light. As always, as if nothing had happened. Then he called. I took her phone before she had time to realize what was happening. Robert didn't wait for my hello. You there? His voice soft, greedy. I didn't answer and hung up. I was climbing the stairs like a man, counting the steps to the gallows. She saw my face, that dead calm, and froze. My shirt hung limply in her hands. Her eyes darted, cautious. What? I handed her the phone, but didn't give it to her. I only allowed the message glowing on the screen. You don't need to fold my clothes anymore, I said. I watched her, the woman I bought a house for, the one whose child support debts I paid so she could start with a clean slate, the woman who cried into my shirt that night when her ex took custody of her daughter, when I promised she'd never be alone again. Now she stood 3 steps away from me, calculating how much longer she could keep pretending. Why him? She started mumbling. I don't know what you're talking about. It must be a mistake, so I pressed Robert's name. Press call. Turn on speakerphone to immediately find out what was going on. Though everything was already clear, Robert didn't make me wait. Sweetheart, I didn't catch what you said. So are we meeting before Sunday, as always in my office at the church? I'm really looking forward to this meeting. Mary Lou, are you there? She snatched the phone and ran out. The front door slammed. I stood in the middle of our bedroom, the air thick with silence. Then my phone rang. Finance app. Funds have been withdrawn from your 401k retirement account. My brain refused to process it. My account, the one only I had access to, except the little black notebook in the nightstand, the one where I wrote down all the passwords, all the logins, because trust meant hiding nothing, because I was an idiot, and she used it. She probably finally figured out compound interest. That money, part of it went to pay her child support, cleared her debts to the ex who got full custody. I paid them so we could build a family, and now she took the rest. This wasn't just theft. It was a slap in the face. I called my lawyer. Divorce, a lawsuit, and most likely criminal charges. But the truth was I already knew this was just the beginning. The tax service would come for their share. Early withdrawals meant penalties, taxes, and I would have to prove I wasn't involved. But later I realized my suspicions were just the tip of the iceberg. At that time, though, I had no idea that the criminal case against her would turn this town upside down. I was expecting a blow, but I didn't think it would come so quickly. A few days after the truth started slipping out of control, a manila envelope lay on my porch. No address, no explanation, just my name, scrawled in uneven handwriting. A warning. I brought it into the house, hand steady as if I were defusing a bomb. When I poured the contents onto the kitchen table, the world shifted. Printouts, screenshots, timestamps. The sheriff's office logo stared at me like a death sentence. Her phone had been accessed, gutted. She thought she deleted everything. Clever, but not clever enough. Deleted doesn't mean gone. I saw everything. My 401k retirement account emptied. A financial audit laid everything out. She used my passwords, stolen from the black notebook in my nightstand, the one I had shown her just in case. Funny how trust turns into a blade. And then, messages. She and Robert, my cousin, the pastor, the one who baptized children in holy water on Sundays and sent filth to my wife at midnight. One of his messages hit like a fist. We should continue this kind of heartfelt openness. Let this be our secret. Another, from her, twisted the knife. With you I feel incredibly at ease. It feels like you're the only one who understands me. With him, talking about this would have been hard. I couldn't read any further. My pulse pounded. At that moment my phone rang, pulling me back to reality. My lawyer, voice sharp. The prosecutor shared digital evidence. A favor repaid. She's under geographic restriction. She can't leave the state. She's in a cage, I said, my voice colorless. In every sense. That night, I flipped through every page, every word she sent to him, every lie that had surfaced. The anger burned quietly but steadily. Justice in this small town was too quiet, too polite. So I did what any man would do when the truth screams to be heard. I photographed everything and sent the photos to the church elders. No words, no accusations. Just the bare, ugly truth. Sunday came. The church was like a pressure cooker, the air thick with whispers. I sat in the middle of the aisle, arms crossed, back straight. The senior pastor climbed the pulpit, fingers gripping the wood like it might splinter. Today, he said, voice tense, Brother Robert is temporarily suspended from ministry. A serious moral failing. He is repentant. And that was it. No names, no details, just polished vagueness. But by noon, the town was buzzing. Everyone knew. The press pounced. A local reporter, hungry for scandal, pieced together what I hadn't noticed before. Robert, my wife, the church's dirty secret. The headline screamed, local pastor suspended over alleged affair with church volunteer. Her face, blurred from a photo at a church fundraiser, shamefully flaunted online. Her name, in bold black letters. The betrayal was no longer mine alone. It had a mailing address. That night, Mary Lou made herself known through a voicemail. Her voice weak, cracked. There was nothing between us, but even what there was didn't go as far as you imagined. Still, what you did untied my hands. There's no way back now. I didn't respond. Instead, I replayed the scene from church in my head. The silence after the pastor's words. Heads turning, not to pray, but to look at me, at her, at the woman who brought coffee to Bible study, who cried over losing custody of her children, to whom I promised she'd never feel alone. I wanted to burn it all to the ground. A week later, she showed up on my doorstep. No tears, no pleading. Just paper in her hand, voice cold as stone. Sign this. Quick divorce. You'll keep most of the money in the division. I stared, not believing my eyes. You stole from me. Lied. Doing God knows what with my cousin. And now you're bargaining. She didn't flinch. You're angry. I understand. But you don't have to destroy me. What's happening between Robert and me is nothing more than a spontaneous emotional connection. I stepped closer, locked eyes with her. I'm not destroying you. You did that yourself. From what I saw with my own eyes, your emotional connection was so strong, it made you steal my money. You think I'm stupid enough to sign these papers that turn theft into voluntary division? And as for Robert, I'm just turning on a light so everyone can see he's no longer fit to be a pastor. My phone rang again as she left, her shadow dissolving into the dusk. On the screen, the local reporter's name. We want to hear your side, he said, voice sharp with hunger. One interview. Name the time. I gripped the phone, heart pounding. This wasn't over. The truth was about to hit the front page, and it was going to tear this town apart. My phone buzzed at 9:30 in the morning, yanking me from dark thoughts about her betrayal. The number belonged to Mr. Thompson, a church elder, his voice quivering with barely contained rage. Have you read today's Chronicle? He barked. Your interview tore our congregation in half. I heard him flip pages and pictured my name screaming from the headline. You think you're a hero? He went on. You just lit a fuse, and we're all going to burn. I gripped the phone, realizing my words had just pried open Pandora's box. The local press had been circling like sharks since the scandal broke. By noon, they got me. A Chronicle reporter, all polished questions and hungry eyes, caught me at the diner. One interview, she said, her notebook open like a trap. Tell your story, or they'll tell it for you. I didn't want to talk, but letting Robert and my wife twist the narrative was worse. So I agreed. We sat in a corner booth, the diner's hum fading as I spilled it all. The manila envelope. The text between her and Robert, my cousin, the pastor who preached virtue while drowning in vice. I read one aloud, voice flat but raw. Your confessions, Mary Lou, keep haunting me. I feel the bond between us only growing stronger. Neither of us is to blame for this happening. The reporter's pen froze, but she kept silent, letting the words sink in. I said I knew I'd done right, exposing him. He baptized kids, preached morality, then sent my wife filth by midnight. I couldn't let him wear that halo. Then I dropped the truth nobody saw coming. I'd have buried her betrayal. Kept it private. But Robert? My own blood? That's what broke the dam. The interview hit the Chronicle's front page the next day. My words etched in ink for the town to devour. The headline was merciless. Husband's revenge. Pastor's affair exposed by betrayed kin. My phone lit up. Texts, calls, voicemails from strangers. Some praised me. Others cursed me. The town fractured, and I was the fault line. The church turned into a war zone. Sunday service erupted into chaos. Parishioners split over forgiveness versus justice. Mrs. Callahan, who'd baked communion bread for 30 years, stood mid-sermon, her voice like thunder. No shepherd leads after straying with the flock. She declared, slamming her hymn book shut. Half the pews roared in agreement. The other half prayed harder, as if faith could glue the cracks. The senior pastor's pleas for calm were swallowed by the storm. I should have stayed home, but I needed coffee. Noise. Something that didn't reek of guilt soaked in gasoline. The moment I walked into the corner store, I felt it. Heads turned. Conversations clipped short. A teenager pulled out his phone. Not even subtle. Behind the counter, Jeff gave a tight nod. Forced, like he didn't want to be seen acknowledging me. Then came the voice. You drag her through the mud, she snapped. And Robert? That man baptized my grandson. People watched. No one blinked. I turned. Middle-aged woman. Longtime church member. She looked at me like I'd spit in the offering plate. You didn't just expose them, she said. You humiliated all of us. Maybe you should have kept your shame to yourself. I could have walked away. I should have. But the heat rising in my throat had nowhere else to go. I have screenshots. I have timestamps. I have filth written by your beloved pastor at midnight. You think I wanted this? I said. He was family. She was my wife. People backed up. She crossed her arms. So you made it worse. Worse. I laughed, sharp, bitter. Robert stood in that pulpit preaching about sin while sending filth to my wife. Silence. If that's the church you want to protect, go ahead. But don't ask me to play dead so the rest of you can feel holy. I left the coffee on the counter. Outside, I stood under the sun, my heart thudding against my ribs like a war drum. Let them whisper. Let them judge. I was done apologizing for telling the truth. The next morning, the town was still raw. My interview had turned the church into a powder keg, and social media was worse. Posts branding my wife a thief, Robert a fraud, me a judge. One comment cut deep. You aired your dirty laundry, and now the whole town's choking on the stench. I wanted to shrug it off, but it clung like damp rot. But Robert hadn't said a word, not to the press, not to the church, not even to me. It wasn't just silence, Doc. I knew Robert, Doc. He wasn't the kind of man who ran out of things to say, Doc. No, he was silent because he knew anything he said could be used against him. But he couldn't keep Mary Lou's mouth shut. My lawyer called at 7:12 a.m., voice tight, like someone reading a death sentence out loud. They got him. My stomach didn't turn. I just stood there frozen. Not because I was surprised, but because some part of me knew this would be just the beginning. Not the end. They're charging Robert with wire fraud. The DA's office moved fast. Apparently your wife gave a full statement. She's still legally my wife, I said, correcting him. The bitterness caught in my throat anyway. He paused, then added, he's under house arrest. Electronic monitor. No contact with her. Or you. I hung up and stared out the window. The street was quiet. Still, that fake kind of peace that comes before something awful finally makes itself known. Mary Lou's voice haunted the inside of my skull. Those pathetic text messages. The way she called Robert her safe space. How he made her feel like she wasn't broken. And now she'd given him up. Turns out, betrayal has a shelf life. By noon, the sheriff's department released the warrant summary. 37 pages of emails, money transfers, and call logs. The sequence was simple. My 401k drained. The money routed to an account in Mary Lou's name. 2 days later, wire transfer to Robert. He told her it was safer, that they couldn't risk direct withdrawals, that if they were caught, she'd be seen as a victim and him as a protector. She believed him. Of course she did. She always needed someone to tell her who she was. By evening, My lawyer had reviewed her full statement. He didn't soften anything when he called back. She told investigators she felt understood. Said he listened when no one else did. She talked about losing custody of her daughter, about her debt. Said she was scared, vulnerable, that she didn't know how to say no to someone who made her feel seen. I went still, like my body couldn't decide whether to fight or fold. She was supposed to be my wife, I said, not someone else's co-conspirator. The next day, the courthouse was a zoo. Reporters, rubberneckers, some of the same church folk who used to kiss Robert's hand like it carried holy water. And then I saw her, Mary Lou, walking out the side exit with a public defender and eyes that looked like she hadn't slept in a year. She saw me, froze, so I walked toward her. Her lawyer whispered something, but she didn't move. Maybe she couldn't. Maybe she knew what was coming. You handed him everything, I said. My money, my trust. You didn't mean to help him rob me blind? Or you didn't mean to fall for a man who quoted scripture between transfers? Her eyes welled up, but tears don't clean up theft. You know what hurts the most? I said, stepping closer. He never even liked you. The words hit like a slap. People were staring. Phones were out. And I didn't care. He used you. Not because you were special. Because you were easy. Someone gasped. I think it was her. Her lawyer pulled her away. I let them go. 15 minutes later, the clip hit social media. No context. No edits. Just my voice saying the part that never made it into sermons. That night, I got a knock on my door. I expected the press. Instead, it was someone I hadn't seen in 10 years. Tommy Reyes, ex-deputy, the guy who once arrested a mayor's son for DUI and got run out of town for it. Now working in private security. You're going to want to see this, he said, handing me a folder. Guy I know in records flagged this when the case hit the system. Thought you'd want to know who co-signed Robert's second mortgage 6 months ago. I opened the folder. It wasn't Mary Lou. It was Robert's younger brother and my cousin. The same brother who moved to Arizona after serving time for credit card fraud. Different last name now. Same face. The second mortgage, $115,000. It matched almost exactly what Robert pulled through Mary Lou. So what are you saying? I asked. I'm saying the fraud charge might be the polite version. You're looking at organized misrepresentation, multi-party collusion. I stared at the folder, felt the old rage twist into something colder. He never needed Mary Lou. She was just the perfect cover, and I was just the perfect target. Maybe justice would handle it, or maybe it wouldn't. But one thing was clear. This wasn't a fall from grace. It was a heist dressed in holy robes. Robert thought house arrest was the worst it would get. Mary Lou still believed her silence might buy her redemption. But the courtroom hadn't spoken yet. They didn't flinch when they sentenced them, Doc. But I did, Doc. Everyone thought justice was blind, Doc. But that day in court, I swear it looked right at them and didn't even blink. Before the verdict ever came down, Robert's family disowned him. The denomination stripped his title, revoked his credentials. The sermons he once preached were deleted from the website. Like he'd never existed, Doc. Mary Lou lost her job at the community center before the sentencing. Parents didn't want her anywhere near their kids. Turns out Sunday school doesn't cover wire fraud. Her mugshot became a meme. Mascara running, eyes hollow. That day, the courtroom was packed. Not a single empty seat. Even the local reporters were standing. When a verdict was read, no one gasped. No one cried. Just silence. They didn't flinch when they were sentenced. 20 years for Robert, 5 more for conspiracy, plus full restitution and a $250,000 fine for each fraud count. The judge didn't even blink. Then came Mary Lou's sentence. The same numbers. The same terms. They tried to portray her as a victim of manipulation, a victim of emotional fraud. But the jury didn't buy it. Neither did the judge. Only when it was all over did Mary Lou sway. Her lips trembled, as if she wanted to say something, but she only bowed her head. Her lawyer whispered something, but she didn't respond. She knew I was watching. My eyes burned, but my chest was empty. When she turned me handcuffed, she didn't look at me. I wasn't sure if that made it better or worse. But the eyes of the crowd bored into her, as if she was no longer their Mary Lou. Later, outside the courthouse, a camera caught me mid-step. A reporter shoved a microphone in my face. Do you feel justice has been served? I didn't answer. I only asked, have you ever been through what I have? Live a single day of my life. Then how would you know what justice feels like? They didn't air that part, but they showed the church sign on the evening news, the one that said grace. The town was waiting for a new pastor. Yet, people weren't talking about that, but about her photograph that had become a meme. That's what she deserved, Jeff said behind the counter. I didn't argue. The money came back in pieces. The court forced the liquidation of assets, Robert's car, Mary Lou's retirement account. Did it feel good? Like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. Her sentence, 25 years, fines, her name in the mud, was the only thing holding back my anger. It didn't heal the wound, but at least I knew she had paid. Yet, I still heard her voice in my head, and that was probably worse than any sentence. At home, it was emptier but lighter. There were still shadows in the bedroom, but they were no longer hers. The last thing I threw out was the framed photo from our 3rd anniversary. On the back, she had written, "Forever is just the beginning." Maybe she was right, in the worst possible way. The next morning, I sat at home with a cup of black coffee. No sugar, as always now. Mary Lou's verdict lay on the table in the newspaper, her name in bold black letters. Justice had a bitter taste, but I drank it down to the end.